Now that we have a sense of this overall timeline of mass media change, both in terms of the orders that have made up most of American political communication history and also the revolutions that have disrupted these, we should take a look more specifically at what's happening today. What we have today is essentially a time of extreme technological layering, where TV is still the dominant source of information, the dominant source of political information out there. The internet is growing fast, we've talked about this, and print is fading. But all of these things are layering on top of one another and actually merging together in many ways, where new TVs are called smart TVs and have internet with them. You now suddenly have the ability to increasingly wear computers and watch YouTube and watch shows on on Google Glass and things like this. The idea of technological layering and distinct mediums no longer having their distinct character and starting to merge together is really an important piece moving forward. We also have extraordinarily interactive content. Content is meant to be shared, meant to be commented on, meant in many ways to be edited and changed. Think about Wikipedia, for instance. We also have information abundance, as opposed to information scarcity, which existed previously. Print and even broadcast, to a certain extent, had very scarce sources of information, and so you had a few things to choose from. How you chose those was much easier. Today you have information abundance, so navigation is really important. And you have politicians and organizations which are going public, which is a really important term that is connected to some of your readings for today and the blog post for today. And going public is essentially interacting with the public directly in order to raise awareness for particular issues or increase pressure on Congress or other political actors to try to get something done. This is something that we're going to talk about in class, but it's something that is increasingly available with the internet. We now have the ability to create our own content, for politicians to create their own videos, and all of those and all of that is changing political communication dramatically. As a result of all of this increased information and all of these new tools, we have what is referred to as audience fragmentation. And audience fragmentation really comes out of Marcus Pryor's very important work. And Marcus Pryor was not talking about the current era, he was really talking about the broadcast era. Much of Marcus Pryor's work that you read about during this module describes the broadcast era, which brought fundamental changes to news viewership, which had dramatic effects on our politics and on our democracy. He argues, and I think he argues correctly, that people today are no less interested in politics than they were in previous eras. What is different is that people today have many more choices, and this really took place during the broadcast era for the most part. We moved from a low-choice media environment, which really existed through the 1960s. During the early years of the broadcast era, there were only a few options for television channels, and each of those channels, each of the big three as they were called, showed TV news, showed political content for 15 and then eventually 30 minutes per night on weeknights. So if you wanted to watch TV, you had to watch political content during at least that brief news period. Ultimately, this led to what he called politics by default. If you were going to watch TV, which many people preferred to watch TV than not watch TV, you were going to get some political information. This changed as cable slowly expanded in terms of the number of channels available, the number of niche channels that were now available, and once satellite came into play, this really became a high-choice media environment. And a high-choice media environment brought on by the expansion of cable, satellite, and eventually the internet led to politics by choice as opposed to politics by default. In this new high-choice environment, people can choose whatever they want to watch. If they want to watch political coverage, if they want to watch news, they can do that. In fact, they can do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can watch CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and a dozen other news stations if they really want. But they can also choose to watch entertainment, and only entertainment. They can watch sports 24 hours a day. You can watch fashion 24 hours a day. You can watch soap operas 24 hours a day. And so the idea is that today, once we were ushered into this high-choice media environment, it no longer mattered it was not the fact that people wanted to follow politics less, but they simply had more choices. And people were going to choose many of the choices that were not political and not news, as opposed to previously when they really didn't have that option if they wanted to watch TV at all. Add in the internet, on-demand, DVR, and the ability to watch on your phone and tablet, and you dramatically increase the choices offered in the current media environment. Ultimately, if you add to all of that major changes that have happened within TV news and within journalism over the past 20 or so years, you really get a sense of how different our political news coverage is and how different the information that we generally have at our fingertips when we're watching broadcast news, still the dominant form of political information today. The best explanation of this is a clip that we're going to watch next, an interview with Dan Rather, who was present and actually in charge during much of this transition over the last few decades.